I'm 34 now, and my wife Rachel is 32. We've been together almost 10 years, married for 5. No kids, but we've always kind of liked it that way. More freedom, more space for our own paths. She works in marketing for a consumer tech company. I'm a construction project manager, mostly on commercial sites. Not glamorous, but it pays well and keeps me moving. We met through a friend of a friend at a Halloween party. I wasn't even planning to go. I'd just gotten off a late shift and I was tired and cranky, but my roommate at the time wouldn't stop bugging me about it. So I threw on an old button-up and said I was office casual Batman. Rachel was there as a 1920s flapper with this short bob wig and a cigarette holder she twirled around like she'd been born doing it. I remember her smiling at me from across the kitchen while sipping out of a solo cup. She looked like someone who already knew the punchline before the joke was told. We ended up talking the whole night. Not the surface-level party chat either, real talk. Books, music, what we wanted from life. She said something like, "I don't want to chase happiness. I want to build a life that doesn't need chasing." I still remember that line. It was late by the time we left, and I asked for her number while we were waiting for our Ubers. She just handed me her phone and said, "Type fast." It took about 3 months before we were officially together. After a year, we moved into a small place on the north side of the city. Nothing fancy, but it had this tiny balcony where we'd sit with coffee on Sunday mornings. I don't know why, but that balcony always felt like ours. It still does. Now we live in a townhouse just outside the city, quiet neighborhood, big park a few blocks down where we go for walks when the weather's good. We've built a rhythm to our life. Work during the week, Saturday mornings at the farmer's market, movie nights on Fridays with pizza, half mushroom, half plain. Sometimes we'll play Scrabble, and she always wins because she hoards the cue tiles like they're weapons. Her laugh during those games, loud, unfiltered, is still one of my favorite sounds in the world. She's the kind of person who reads 3 books at once and leaves them all open in different rooms. She sings while cooking, always off-key. I handle most of the laundry because she says she always shrinks things. It works. We work. Or at least, we did. But that's later. Right now, I just want to write about the way it started, the way it felt when life was simple and full of small joys. And maybe it still is, in ways I can't quite see yet. We live in a 2-bedroom townhouse just outside the city, close enough to commute, far enough that it feels like you can exhale on the weekends. We turned the second bedroom into a shared office space during the pandemic and never looked back. My desk faces the window. Hers is in the corner with the lamp that's too bright by my standards and perfect by hers. She always has a little plant next to her laptop. I don't think any of them survive more than 6 weeks, but she names every one. Our mornings are calm, almost ceremonial. I get up first, make coffee, black for me, oat milk and honey for her, and she'll wander in wearing whatever shirt she stole from me the night before. We don't talk much until caffeine kicks in. It's a soft silence, not awkward, like a shared agreement to ease into the day. Workdays are workdays. We text here and there, usually about something funny she saw or what she wants for dinner. She has a very dry sense of humor, which I love, one-liners that hit you 5 seconds later when you realize how sharp they were. When I'm on site, I'll sometimes send her voice notes complaining about delays or dumb client requests. She always replies with something short and snarky that makes me laugh in my hard hat. Nights are our time. We usually eat dinner around 7, unless she's working late on a campaign launch or I'm buried under site reports. One of us cooks, the other cleans. It's never assigned, just automatic. Afterwards, we'll either watch a show or listen to music. Rachel's the type to put on a vinyl record and just sit with it. I used to think that was weird until I started enjoying it. I guess that's one of the things that happens. You start seeing the world through the edges of their perspective. She has these quirks, things I used to tease her about, and now miss the second they're not there. She talks to herself when she's cooking, hums when she's focused, keeps a stack of notebooks that she never writes in because they're too nice to ruin. I've probably bought her 20 over the years, and most are still blank. I think they just make her feel calm, having them around. And then there's bedtime. We both stay up too late, always have. She reads under a dim light on her side, and I scroll through my phone until she whacks it out of my hand with her book. We fall asleep close, usually with one of her legs tangled in mine and her hair getting in my face. It's familiar. It's warm. It's home. I don't think either of us ever set out to create something perfect. We just fell into this rhythm. It was always more about consistency than fireworks. Not every day is memorable, but that's what makes it feel solid. Real. She's not just someone I love. She's my person. That's who we were. Who we are. Anyway, that's probably enough for tonight. Part 3 will be about how we keep things interesting, how we spend time together outside of the day-to-day stuff, vacations, friends, little rituals. Basically, the rest of the picture. One thing I've learned about being with someone for a long time is that love isn't always in the big, sweeping gestures. It's in the way you show up for each other in the everyday, and in the quiet stuff that doesn't make it into photo albums. Still, Rachel and I did have our share of the memorable, out-of-the-routine moments that helped keep things light and connected. We traveled a fair bit, not constantly, but enough to have some core memories stamped into our relationship. Our first trip together was to New Orleans. We stayed in a hotel that was way too expensive for what it was, but we didn't care. We walked for hours, ate until we couldn't move, danced on a random balcony one night because we followed the sound of a jazz trumpet and ended up at a street party. That was the trip we started saying yes to more things on instinct. It became our motto, just say yes, then figure it out. After that came others, Iceland, where we got lost in a lava field and she thought we were going to die in a very scenic way. Montreal, where we got drunk at a poetry slam. A couple trips to the West Coast to visit friends, one of whom got engaged while we were there and ended up asking Rachel to officiate their wedding the following year. She said no at first, of course, claimed she hated public speaking, but she ended up doing it and crushed it. I still remember the look on her face when the couple hugged her afterward, like maybe she'd surprised even herself. At home, we had our own rituals. Sunday mornings were sacred. We'd make big breakfasts, pancakes, eggs, fruit, coffee, the works, and eat at the kitchen table with music in the background. No phones, no laptops. Just us. Sometimes we'd talk about our week, sometimes nothing at all. It was never about the food, it was the moment. That breath before the week started all over again. We had friends over now, and then small dinner parties, movie nights. Rachel was the social one, the natural host. She could walk into a room and figure out who was uncomfortable and how to fix it without making it obvious. She had this way of drawing people out, even the quiet ones. I used to joke that she could sell a cactus to a desert. She said if she ever wrote a memoir, that'd be the title. We weren't the kind of couple that was all over each other in public. We weren't flashy. But we were affectionate in our own way, hand on the back while passing through the kitchen, knees touching on the couch, small forehead kisses when one of us left for work. I'd catch her watching me sometimes while I was cooking or working on something, and she'd just smile and shake her head like she was quietly amused by me. And maybe she was. I didn't mind. I liked being her person. Every fall, we had this little ritual where we'd spend one day doing all the cliché autumn stuff. Apple picking, pumpkin carving, hot cider, the works. Rachel called it the corny day. It was supposed to be ironic, but she always went all in flannel shirts, boots, fake leaf garlands in her hair. The last time we did it, she made me a playlist called Embrace the Basic. I still have it saved. If you'd asked me a few months ago how we were doing, I would have said we were good. Not perfect. Not some kind of fairy tale. But we were stable. We knew each other. We supported each other. We had a home together, not just a place, but a life. I thought we were still writing the same story. I didn't realize the chapter was about to change. But I'll save that for next time. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not at first. It came during one of those Sunday breakfasts we always did, a ritual I thought was untouchable. It was late March. We were sitting at the table, pancakes, coffee, some jazz humming in the background. Rachel was staring at her phone but not really typing, just tapping the edge of it. She looked up at me like she'd been rehearsing something in her head and finally decided to just blurt it out. "Have you ever thought about opening things up?" she said, like she was asking if we should repaint the kitchen. I thought she was joking. I even laughed. She didn't. "Wait, you're serious?" She nodded, kind of slowly. "I've been reading stuff. Listening to podcasts. Some people are just wired for non-monogamy. I think. I might be one of them." The silence that followed was the kind that sits on your chest like a weight. I didn't know how to answer at first. My brain was trying to catch up to her words. I finally said, "Are you unhappy?" "No," she said quickly. "No, that's not what this is. I love you. I just think, maybe there's a version of love that's not so confined. I've never been with anyone else long-term. We've been together since I was 22. Don't you ever wonder what else is out there?" "Not really," I said. "I already found it." She looked at me like I didn't understand the question. I'm not asking for a divorce, she said. I'm asking for a conversation. You could see other people too. I looked at her for a long time. So what? We just go have sex with other people and come home like it's normal? It's not about sex, she said, which honestly just made it worse. It's about freedom, autonomy, being honest about what we need. I wasn't angry. Not then. I wasn't anything yet. I was stunned. I told her I wasn't interested, that I didn't want that kind of marriage, that I was happy with what we had, that she could explore that stuff if she wanted, but not as my wife. She didn't fight me on it, not that day. She nodded, said she understood, and we finished our coffee in silence. The next morning, things felt normal again. She kissed me goodbye before work, sent me a meme around lunchtime. It was like the conversation had been folded up and put away. But something was different. Not immediately, but gradually. She stopped initiating affection, started staying out later than usual, book clubs, work dinners, friend nights. I told myself she was just adjusting, processing what I'd said. I wanted to believe her when she said she respected my decision, that she was content to stay committed, to keep things between us. What I didn't know then was that Rachel had already made up her mind. She wasn't asking for permission. She was easing into a decision she'd already made. She'd made the ask. I'd said no. And so, she went ahead anyway. But I wouldn't realize that for a while. That comes later. After Rachel brought up the idea of an open marriage and I said no, things didn't fall apart all at once. That's the part one wasn't prepared for. I expected either a fight or a resolution, some moment where we'd land on one side of the conversation or the other. Instead, life just kept moving. Except, not really. At first, everything seemed fine on the surface. She still came home, still made dinner, still laughed at my dumb jokes when I tried to break the tension. But the laughter didn't last as long. It didn't reach her eyes the way it used to. I noticed she stopped lingering after kisses. They became quick, absent, like an obligation rather than affection. She started going out more. Not in an obviously suspicious way, at least not at first. She said her friend Lila was going through a rough breakup and needed company. That her team at work was suddenly doing happy hours again now that a big project had wrapped. And yeah, those things were plausible. Normal. But still, something didn't feel right. I'd be watching TV waiting for her to come home, and I'd glance at the clock and realize it was 11:30 on a Tuesday. I'd text, all good, and she'd respond 10 or 15 minutes later with something like, yep, just chatting. Be home soon. And I'd sit there wondering why it felt off, even though technically it wasn't. One night, I made her favorite pasta pesto with sun-dried tomatoes, the kind she always raved about. She said thanks, took 2 bites, and left the rest, saying she wasn't that hungry. That was new. So was the fact that she didn't sit next to me on the couch anymore. She'd take the chair instead, legs tucked under her, scrolling quietly. It wasn't just physical distance. There was this emotional drift, too. She used to tell me everything small stuff, random stories from her day, office drama. Now I'd ask how work went, and she'd say, same as usual, or nothing exciting. I'd ask how Lila was holding up, and she'd shrug and say, she's okay, I guess. There wasn't anything big I could point to. No screaming matches. No accusations. But I started lying awake longer at night, listening to her breathing beside me and wondering what was different. I couldn't explain it. I just felt it. The space between us wasn't filled with conflict. It was just empty. I didn't want to seem paranoid or controlling, so I didn't bring it up. I told myself I was overthinking, that people go through phases, that relationships shift and settle and shift again, that maybe she was just still processing the open marriage conversation and needed time to recalibrate. But sometimes she'd be quiet at dinner and then suddenly light up when a notification came through on her phone. A flicker of a smile she didn't offer me anymore. I'd pretend not to notice. I wasn't ready to start a conversation I couldn't start. One night, I rolled over in bed and reached out for her, just to rest my hand on her back like I always used to. But she shifted away in her sleep, or maybe just as I touched her. Hard to say. It was nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. More soon. It's strange how silence can be louder than words. That's the best way I can describe what things felt like between Rachel and me during that stretch of weeks. There weren't any big fights. No dramatic changes. But every day, something small would fall away. A glance, a laugh, a question left unasked. And in their place, just quiet. I remember sitting across from her at dinner one night. Nothing special, just some takeout sushi on a Wednesday. and realizing I couldn't remember the last real conversation we'd had. Not logistics. Not who was taking the car in for servicing or whether we were out of oat milk. I mean a conversation. The kind that drifts, where you forget about time and end up talking about something completely different from where you started. We used to do that constantly. Now we ate in short exchanges and long silences, her eyes on her phone or drifting out the window, mine glued to my food to avoid saying what was crawling up the back of my throat. Are we okay? But I didn't ask. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to hear an answer that I already felt. Rachel had always been a creature of pattern. Not rigid, not predictable in a dull way, but consistent. She had her routines, the podcast she listened to during her walks, the Sunday yoga class she never missed, the friends she saw regularly. But now those routines were changing, subtly. Her evenings out became more frequent. Once or twice a week turned into 3, then 4. The names changed too. First Lila, then some co-workers, then you don't know them. It's from that marketing workshop I went to. I'd nod, pretending that made sense, pretending that I didn't feel the way her explanations skimmed over me like a pebble on water. No depth, no pause, just motion for motion's sake. There was one night, Friday, I think, when I came home early from work, hoping we could finally spend some time together. She was already dressed up, heels on, makeup done, hair curled in that extra bit of effort kind of way. I asked where she was going, and she said, "Oh, didn't I tell you? Drinks with a few people from the office." I said I didn't remember, and she just gave me that airy laugh, like you're just forgetful, not me. And I let it go. When she left, I stood at the front door a little longer than I meant to. The scent of her perfume still hung in the air. It hit me then that I used to love that smell, vanilla and spice, soft but warm. Now it just made my chest tighten. Over the next few days, I started noticing other things. Her phone, which used to live face up on the counter or coffee table, was always in her pocket or turned screen down. She started wearing this new necklace I'd never seen before, simple gold with a little geometric charm. When I asked if it was new, she said offhandedly, "Oh, I've had this for ages," then changed the subject. She wasn't colder exactly, just removed, like she was always half somewhere else, even when she was sitting right next to me. When we watched TV, I'd glance over and find her smiling faintly at something on her screen instead. When I tried to ask about her day, her stories were vague. Conversations with no names, places without details. It was like her world had started splitting in two, and I was only invited to one side. And then there were the nights she came home later than usual. Not late, just past the window where it made sense. "Lost track of time," she'd say. Lila needed to talk. We grabbed a nightcap. You know how it is. Always with a shrug, always casual. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. Because if I didn't, then what was the alternative? I'm not proud of this, but I started checking the clock more obsessively. Watching the minutes pass. Listening for the sound of her keys in the door. I'd hear footsteps outside and tense without meaning to. Sometimes when she came in, she'd kiss me on the cheek like she was clocking in at work, and I'd pretend it didn't feel like something being rehearsed. Was I imagining it all? Was I turning into one of those guys who sees ghosts in every late text or missed call? I didn't want to become that. I didn't want to be suspicious without cause. But that feeling, low in my gut, crawling up into my chest, wouldn't leave. It was like waiting for something to happen, without knowing what. Or maybe it already had. But I wasn't ready to go there yet. I started dreading weekends. That's the part one didn't expect. You think weekends are the buffer between one grind and the next, the space where you reconnect, recalibrate, slow down. That used to be the case for us. Now they felt like reminders. Empty spaces where something used to be. A shared rhythm that had gone out of sync, and I was the only one still moving to the old beat. Rachel had always been a planner. She liked having little things to look forward to. A hike on Saturday, brunch on Sunday, sometimes just a new recipe she'd found and wanted to try. Now it felt like she was filling the weekends just to stay in motion, booked solid with vague social plans, friends I hadn't met, coworkers I'd never heard her mention before. She'd say, "Oh, it's just a quick catch-up," or "It's Lila again, she's still going through it." But it never felt quick. And she'd always come back quiet. Not tired, not moody, just drained, like whatever energy she had to give had been spent somewhere else. And it never came back to me. One Saturday afternoon, I asked if she wanted to take a drive out to the lake we used to visit when we first started dating. The place with the little taco stand and the dock where she once pushed me in because I said something smug about sunscreen. She looked up from her laptop and said, "I really can't today." I promised I'd help Jess with her business launch. I nodded like it made perfect sense, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't even look disappointed about missing it. That maybe she didn't even remember what that place meant to us. That night, I sat alone on the couch watching a movie we used to love, one of those dark comedies with inside jokes we used to quote to each other. Halfway through, I realized I hadn't laughed once. And what hit me harder was the realization that I didn't expect to. I was just watching something to fill the air. Rachel got home around 10. She said they lost track of time again, that they'd ended up back at someone's apartment, talking about astrology and cocktails and who knows what else. She smelled different, still her, but something new underneath. And I know it's dumb, but I kept wondering whether it was just someone else's cologne on her clothes, or something more deliberate. I didn't ask. I couldn't. Because what was I supposed to say? "Hey, I don't think you're cheating, but I noticed your perfume smells different and your laugh doesn't sound like it used to." I couldn't make myself into that guy. And maybe I was afraid of what she'd say. The next morning, I woke up and she was already out of bed. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, legs folded under her, staring at her phone. She didn't notice me at first. When she finally did, she smiled in that distracted way people do when you interrupt a thought. "Morning," she said, and set her phone face down like it was automatic. We had breakfast, barely said a word. I asked about her night and she gave me a vague answer, all surface. No names. No moments. Just, it was fun. Then she asked if I could run a few errands because she had a catch-up thing to get to later. After she left, I stood in the kitchen staring at the counter where her phone had been. I knew I wasn't going to snoop. I told myself a long time ago that I wouldn't be that kind of partner. If I had to go looking for something, then the trust was already gone, and I wasn't ready to admit that yet. So I just stood there and waited for the feeling in my chest to pass. It didn't. The worst part wasn't the suspicion. It was the loneliness. The sense that I was holding on to something that wasn't holding me back. I kept reaching for her in ways she no longer noticed, laughing at things she didn't hear, asking questions she didn't really answer. I told myself this was just a phase, that couples go through rough patches, that I just needed to be patient, to show up, to not overthink. But sometimes, late at night, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder if she was just slowly walking away from me, one unread message at a time. I found out on a Monday. It was one of those slow, gray mornings where everything feels a little off, even before anything actually goes wrong. I was sitting in my truck outside a supplier's warehouse, sipping burnt coffee, half listening to the radio, waiting on a delivery that was already 20 minutes late. My phone buzzed. Notification from Rachel. At first glance, it didn't register. It was one of those silent video previews from a text message, a second of muted motion before the thumbnail froze. My brain didn't connect the image right away. Just blurred shapes. A bed. Skin. Movement. Then it clicked. I stared at the screen, not breathing. The preview didn't show much. Just enough. My hands went cold. I tapped on it. The video had already been deleted. Message gone. Rachel deleted a message, that's all that was left. Nothing else in the thread. Just that empty gray text and my own pulse hammering in my ears. For a moment, I actually thought I was imagining it. I blinked, tried to retrace what I'd seen, that brief 1-second loop of a scene I should never have had to see. Her voice, barely audible, saying something I didn't catch. And someone else, his back, his hands on her, her laugh, louder than I've heard it in months. That laugh was what stopped my breath. I knew that laugh. I sat there in the truck, not moving, barely thinking. The radio kept playing like nothing had happened. I didn't call her. I didn't even text. What would I say? "Hey, did you just accidentally send me a video of you cheating on me?" What's the reply to that? I checked the notification history on my phone, one of those tools I installed months ago to remind me of calendar invites and forgotten alarms. There it was, video message from Rachel, 16 seconds. It had come through, lingered just long enough, and then disappeared like smoke. But not fast enough. She didn't mean for me to see it. That much was clear. It was too careless, too sudden. Maybe she meant to send it to someone else. Maybe her fingers slipped. Maybe she thought she deleted it fast enough that I wouldn't notice. But I did. I didn't move for maybe 20 minutes. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, like it might explain itself if I held it long enough. I kept refreshing the thread, like the video might reappear, like I might somehow catch her in the act again and confirm that it was real. as if I needed more confirmation. And the worst part? That second, that single frozen frame. Her eyes, the expression on her face. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was joy. She looked alive, present, not at all like the woman who'd been quietly drifting away from me for the past few months. She didn't look like someone haunted by what she was doing. She looked like someone who had already decided that I didn't matter anymore. I didn't go into the warehouse. I didn't call the office. I just drove. No destination. I needed to move, to do something, anything that didn't involve sitting still in that moment. Later that day, she texted me like everything was normal. A funny photo of a dog in a sweater. Like she hadn't just shattered the ground beneath my feet. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. But everything was clear now. All the late nights, the distance, the sudden silences, none of it had been in my head. She wasn't waiting for me to come around to her idea of freedom. She had already left. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I didn't send a long message or ask her why. I didn't give her that dignity. I just shut the door quietly, fully, and with finality. That same night, after I saw the video, I drove to my brother's place and crashed on his couch without explanation. I didn't tell him much, just that I needed space and would explain soon. He didn't press. He gave me a blanket, handed me a beer, and let me sit in silence. At some point, I told him I needed a favor. The next morning, we were at my place at 7 a.m., pulling Rachel's things out of the closet, boxing up drawers, clearing shelves, stacking her books, shoes, and whatever was still hers into neat, labeled containers. We didn't break anything. We didn't trash her stuff. We just removed her. It was clinical. Focused. I wasn't angry, I was awake. Like something in my head had gone silent, and in that stillness, I could finally see the entire picture. She hadn't just drifted away from me. She had left. She had built a whole world outside our home and invited someone else into it, without having the decency to leave the front door open behind her. She'd kept me here, waiting, while she lived elsewhere. That wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. She was supposed to be home by noon. I timed everything so she'd walk into a version of our home that no longer had her name on it. Her key didn't work. I changed the locks. I was standing in the entryway when I heard her trying the door, 3 quick clinks, then silence, then knocking, then her voice, muffled, "Babe." I opened it slowly. She blinked, surprised by how calm I looked. She smiled, like we were going to share a joke. "Hey, the lock," she started. "You don't live here anymore," I said, not raising my voice. The smile vanished. "What are you talking about?" "I took the day off," I said. "Packed everything that's yours. It's all in the garage. You can take it whenever you want. But you don't live here." "Not anymore." Her face twisted, confusion first, then fear, then something closer to anger. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" I didn't answer. I stepped aside, just enough for her to see the house behind me. Her absence was visible. The bare spaces where her plants used to be. The shelf stripped of her books. The kitchen counter cleared of her tea canisters. The walls even looked colder. She looked past me, like maybe she could still talk her way back in. Like this was something I'd get over. "You're not even going to talk to me," she said, voice climbing. I turned toward the hallway. "There's nothing to talk about." "Wait, just stop for a second," she said, following me into the house. "If this is about something you think you saw." I turned around slowly. "I don't think anything. You sent me a video." Her mouth opened, then shut. Just for a moment, I saw it, the realization that she didn't delete it fast enough. That I saw. And worse, that she had been sloppy enough to let it happen. Her lips parted again, but no words came out. "You sent me a video of you with someone else," I said quietly. "And you deleted it like a child hiding something behind her back, thinking if she's quick enough, no one will notice." "It was a mistake," she started. I held up my hand. "I'm not interested." Her expression broke, anger collapsing into desperation. "Please, can we talk? You can't just throw us away." I laughed, and it came out hollow. "Throw us away? You lit the match months ago. I'm just walking out of the fire." "You don't understand," she said. "It didn't mean anything. I didn't plan." "You offered me an open marriage," I cut in. "I said no. That was your moment. You could have left, could have ended things with some dignity. But you wanted both. You wanted to keep me here while you went and did whatever the hell you wanted out there. That's not love, Rachel. That's not a marriage." She stepped forward like she was going to touch me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said, firmly. "We're done." "What about the wedding?" she asked, and for a second she looked stunned, like she truly believed that still meant something. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It's canceled. The venue knows. The guest will know by the end of the day. Her face fell. She stood there, in the middle of the empty living room that used to be ours, and I saw her really grasp it for the first time. That I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't going to argue or negotiate or scream. I was just done. Please, she whispered. I didn't respond. I walked past her, opened the front door, and held it. She looked at me, like maybe she'd cry. Like maybe there was still a version of this where I forgave her. I didn't. I just waited. Eventually, she picked up her bag and walked out. I closed the door behind her. The house was silent after she left. It wasn't the kind of silence that wraps you in peace. It was heavier than that. Dense. A silence that filled every room like fog, like something thick you had to walk through. I sat on the edge of the bed, my bed now, I guess, and just stared at the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I didn't even really think. I just sat there while the sun set behind the curtains and the room slowly dimmed into gray. I didn't go through her boxes. I didn't need to. Her absence was already everywhere. The closet door slightly open with hangers left behind. The single mug still in the dish rack that she used every morning. Her hair tie on the bathroom counter, stretched and worn. It's incredible, really, how much of someone lingers even after they're gone. You expect the big things. The empty drawers. The bare wall. What gets you are the little remnants they didn't mean to leave. That night, I lay in bed for hours without sleeping. My phone lit up twice, once from her, once from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't check. I didn't want words. I didn't want apologies or explanations or justifications. I wanted silence. Or maybe I wanted meaning, and silence was the closest thing to it I could find. The next day, I called the venue and told them to cancel. The woman on the phone was kind, overly gentle in that way people are when they sense something just beneath the surface. I'm sorry to hear that, she said. I just said thanks. I sent a single email to everyone on the guest list, short and simple. The wedding is canceled. Thank you for understanding. I didn't give them a reason. I didn't owe them one. I told my family a little more. My brother already knew most of it, and my parents didn't ask for details. They know me well enough to understand when I'm at the edge of what I can put into words. My mom offered to stay over. I told her no. I needed the space, even if it hurt. It's a strange thing, the first few days after something ends. You expect the heartbreak to be loud, but it's not. It's subtle. It's in the way your hand reaches for your phone to text someone who isn't yours anymore. It's in the way you glance at the time and think, she should be home by now, before remembering she's not coming back. It's in the way you replay everything, every conversation, every moment where maybe, just maybe, you could have seen the cracks sooner. It's all so quiet. It's suffocating. But mixed in with that grief was something else, something I didn't expect. Clarity. I saw everything clearly now. The way she pulled back, little by little. The way she softened her lies with just enough truth. The way she let me believe we were still something we hadn't been in months. I don't know when she stopped loving me. Maybe she did. Maybe she still does, in some warped, selfish way. But she stopped choosing me. That's what I know. She stopped choosing this life. She stopped choosing honesty. She chose something else, and she thought I'd be too passive, too patient, too trusting to notice. She was wrong. What hurts isn't the cheating, not exactly. It's the betrayal of belief. I believed in her. In us. I believed she was the kind of person who, even if she wanted something else, would at least be honest about it. I believed she would end one chapter before starting another. That she would respect me enough to look me in the eye before walking away. Instead, she did what cowards do. She left in stages. Softly. In pieces. She just didn't expect me to shut the door behind her. The strangest part is that somewhere in that silence, I started to feel something else entirely. The first breath of freedom. It was faint, buried under everything else. But it was there. I was still heartbroken. Still angry. Still tired. But I wasn't stuck anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting on anyone. It's been a few weeks since Rachel walked out that door for the last time. The silence doesn't feel as heavy now. It's still there, thick in places, sharp in others, but it no longer feels like it's swallowing me. It's something I move through now, instead of something that holds me still. I boxed up the rest of her things last weekend, the leftover pieces she hadn't picked up or forgotten she owned. A hoodie in the dryer, a bottle of shampoo in the back of the cabinet, an old concert ticket tucked in a book she never finished reading. I didn't read it. I didn't smell it. I just folded the page back in and closed the cover. I didn't throw anything out. I didn't burn the past. There's no satisfaction in that. Not for me. I don't need to erase her. I just need her to be done taking up space in my life. The hardest part, honestly, hasn't been missing her. It's been missing who I thought she was. Missing who we were. Or who I thought we were. I've replayed our first years together in my head so many times. Wondered if she ever really felt the way I did. If all the little traditions and private jokes meant the same to her as they did to me. If she ever looked at me with the same certainty I once had about her. The truth is, I'll never know. And I'm starting to be okay with that. There's been no long apology. No grand explanation. Just a short, awkward text a few days after she left. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. That's all she said. I didn't respond. I don't think there's anything left between us worth salvaging, even in words. What would I say? You broke my trust so completely. I can't even remember what it felt like to believe you. Some days are still hard. I won't lie. I still catch myself thinking about her when something funny happens, or when I hear a song we both used to play on long drives. But the ache is different now. Less sharp. More like a bruise that's fading. I started running again. Nothing intense. Just a few miles here and there. Earbuds in. Quiet streets. Cold air. It helps. So does waking up early. Keeping busy. Cooking meals for one without feeling sorry for myself. These are small things, but they add up. They remind me that I'm still here. Still building something. Even if it's not what I pictured a year ago. I don't know what comes next. I'm not rushing to figure that out. Right now, I'm learning how to be alone without feeling empty. Learning how to sit in my own life without waiting for someone else to walk in and validate it. There's no neat ending to a story like this. No perfect bow. No. And then I found someone better tied onto the last paragraph. Maybe that happens one day. Maybe it doesn't. But what I know, what I've earned, is that I'm not going to let someone shrink my life down ever again. I won't give anyone else the power to quietly pull away while I hold my breath, waiting for them to turn around. I said no. She did it anyway. And now she's gone. And I'm still here. Still standing. Still moving forward.